Dave, how we doing?
Hi, Mike. Hi, George. Welcome.
Hey, George.
Good evening. Good to see you.
See you. And good.
I will note for the two of you and others that this is obviously going to be a public meeting and it's being streamed on our YouTube channel live. So anything you say can and will be used against you.
Gotcha.
Appreciate the reminder.
How's everyone holding up?
I'm doing well. It's the weather's been great to be outside, you know. It's great. The flies are starting to get a little too curious, you know. Yeah.
Doing fine. Thank you. Very happy to be here.
Yes.
So what have you been up to, Dave?
Coordinating Zoom meetings, pushing paper, listening to the whole spectrum of this is craziness. Why is this closed? To I'm not coming out of my house for months. I haven't been out for 2 months now, and just trying to do the best we can.
So yeah, so do you get to be the lightning rod for complaints and inquiries?
Well, we have staff rotating in and out of the office on different days, and
Yes. Okay.
but some are in, some are working from home, and the poor ladies out front get the brunt of it, and then when they've had enough, they pass the call my way.
Well,
Okay, it's all good.
Do you have any sense how we're doing in Lincolnville in terms of people coming down with the virus?
I am unaware of the status of most everything or anyone. I'm not aware of anyone in town that is active or has made it known.
That's great.
Yeah, good place to be. We do have an attendee who identified as Edna, just so you know, and whoever that is that's watching. We're using the Zoom webinar feature where all you folks on the committee are called panelists, and others that are watching are called attendees. Some other communities had experienced less than desirable. Hi, Josh.
Hey, how's it going, David?
Good. Less than desirable behavior on some people's parts when they were using just the meeting feature, and then anybody and everybody could log on. So we chose the webinar feature, and that way people can watch and listen and see you all, and you can see them all, or you can't see the attendees, but they're out there. So just another safeguard.
George, how are you doing?
Very well, Josh. Yourself?
Good. And how are you, Mike?
Doing well, Josh. Are you getting out on the water?
I went rowing a few days ago. Went down Pitcher Pond through the channel, the night pond, and back.
So,
It was
yeah.
quite nice.
Yeah, and so how's the wind? Was it windy?
It was pretty windy coming back. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
a nice challenge.
So there's plenty of water in the channel, right?
Yeah, tons.
Oh, good. Yeah, I've got to get my boat in just before it dries up, because it's just a cute little. I love going through that section there.
Yeah, it's fun. It's tricky because my oars are 10 feet long, but
Yeah. Because the banks are right there, right? Yeah.
yeah, they're part of the time I'm sort of I bring them in a few feet as I glide by the shore.
Just disturbing some lily pads, maybe, right? Yeah.
I saw a turtle too as I was going through, a little turtle swimming by. So.
Yeah.
Hey, Howdy.
Hey, John.
How you doing?
How's it going?
Doing well.
Good.
All right. It's Mike Ray. Hi, Mike Ray.
John, how's it going up there?
Pretty good. We're hanging in there.
Hey, now that I have both you and Josh together, I got a question for you. Pronunciation of the road you live on. Van Sickle, Van Cycle.
I think it's Van Sickle as always, but I always end up telling people what the spelling is because I think sickle isn't it's not obvious. Like when you say, I always have to, I always think people are going to spell it like SICKEL or something,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think it's Van Cycle, and I'm not changing my mind.
Oh, okay. There you go.
I've just heard everyone say Van Sickle, so I've just inherited that. But Van Cycle, it's easier to say that because then people will inherently spell it correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But it sounds like we got a Hatfield McCoy situation going on.
Well,
Hi, Jonathan.
I don't think there's any pronunciation issues with Hatfield or McCoy though.
Yeah, and I've heard it both ways. I first heard it sickle, but every once in a while cycle comes up, and I never know. Yeah,
No one will know.
guess not. Yeah, well, we can change history.
Jones. It's pronounced Jones Road. Well, I feel fairly caught up. I read all the stuff.
Okay, great.
I kind of know where things are. But yeah.
Let's see. Kim will not be joining us. I'm not sure if she let you know, David. But hopefully we've got everyone else.
He's there, but muted.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hey,
Hi, Becky.
Hey,
I did get an email from Jordan this afternoon, and he didn't say he wasn't coming. He asked for a tidbit of information that I think I found in the package for him.
Okay.
Still a minute or two early. So, did anybody have any challenges with the instructions or anything that were sent out? Anything that might make it easier for other committees or?
No, worked well for me.
Same with me, yeah.
Very straightforward.
Yeah, it's a pretty good little system. Wished I'd learned about it earlier rather than on the fly, but even a dinosaur can adapt, apparently.
Good job, Dave.
Thanks.
All right. Well, let's wait one more minute. We're at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
This is Dave Perkins. There he is.
Hey, David.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, Dave.
Dave,
Hello.
All right. Well, why don't we get started? We've got a quorum, 7 o'clock. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for attending our first virtual broadband committee meeting. Let's call this meeting to order. Let's first start by discussion of the vice chair position.
Ready? Nope. I gotta mute. Gotta be quiet.
The vice chair position, which is now open since I'm blanking on her name, Dorothy, since she left. Is there any interest from anyone in running for vice chair?
None from me.
nor me, sorry.
Okay. Hi, George.
I'll be glad to.
Okay.
It's just to cover for you if you're gone.
Yeah, basically.
That's fine.
Jordan, we're just talking about the vice chair position and seeing who is interested in running for that position.
Yeah, I would be interested for sure. I don't know
Okay.
if you could hear me or not, but
Yep, I can hear you now. And hi, Gina. There we go.
Hi. I figured it out. It's a little choppy sounding sometimes.
Okay.
So if Jordan wants to do that, that's fine with me. I just want somebody to cover for you when you're not here. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter who.
Okay. Great. Does someone want to make a motion?
I'd move that we have Jordan be the vice chair.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right. This is my first time doing this as a chair virtually. So I'm gonna do what my board chair does and call on each person for your vote. I'm gonna go in order of the boxes on my screen. Mike Ray, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, Jonathan Angenitis.
I vote yes.
Okay, John Fishman.
Yep.
Okay, George Cook.
In accord, I vote yes.
Becky Johnson.
I vote yes.
Okay, David Perkins.
Yes, yes.
Okay, Gina Sawyer.
Yes.
Okay, and Jordan Parker.
He
Okay, I think that's
abstains.
Yes.
yes. Okay, and then
Okay, close. I keep forgetting this meeting is like.
okay, and then I vote yes. And so, Jordan, welcome. You're now the vice chair of the broadband committee.
Let me
Great.
can I just note something?
Yes, please.
Sure. I think we all probably have the capability to raise our hand virtually,
Thank you.
and then it appears next to our image.
Okay.
If we
I
wanted to
see
vote that way. You know, if you click on the participant
Thank you.
icon at the bottom of your screen,
Yeah.
it's usually a way to be recognized, but we could probably vote that way.
Well, the problem is it's not a yes or a no. It's simply a raised hand.
Okay,
Ready?
fine.
I need you to stop making noise. Okay? Don't do that.
I'll lower my hand then.
Okay.
No.
Let's wait for Freddie. Hi, Freddie.
My boy.
All right, let's move on. Agenda item number 3, approval of the minutes. Did anyone get a chance to read them?
Yes.
I did,
Yes.
and I move that we approve them.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion on the minutes?
Mm-mm.
Okay, and here we go again. Mike Ray, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, George Cook,
Yes.
John Fishman,
Yes.
Jonathan Janitis,
Yes.
Becky Johnson,
Yes.
David Perkins,
Yes.
Gina Sawyer,
Yes.
Jordan Barnett Parker,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So unanimous. Okay, and great. So let's move on to agenda item number 4, discussion with Alan Hinsey from LCI. David Kinney, do you want to bring him over? I'm assuming he's here.
I will do so. You have 4 attendees right now, and
Oh, wow.
I'm going to promote Alan to a panelist. And I'm going to run away and hide. You need to sit in here.
Hey, that's not fair.
Time for dinner.
Alan should be coming up momentarily. There he is.
Hey, hi, Alan.
Hi, I had to go put some clothes on.
Thanks
Just
for joining us.
Thank you for that.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So Alan, do you want to start by, I know you wanted to expand on some of the responses.
Well, that too, but also just to kind of, I don't know how much the broadband committee is up to speed on kind of what we presented last fall. And then there have been changes in our world since then, as you may be aware, some of which have to do with the fact that we're meeting virtually now too, but also just changes in funding and those kind of things. I don't know if that's something that would be helpful or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Okay.
I think we want as much information as you can provide.
All right, but I'll try not to wear you out either. So I did send you a copy of this. It's kind of it's the boiled down version of the presentation that I made to the select board last, I think it was November actually.
Mhm.
And it covers all the basic stuff, including the products that we have, our open internet, the phone service with that, and the streaming television, and all the pricing is in there as well. It does lay out the map for Lincolnville, showing you where existing fiber is now, where we would have to build to achieve a 100% fiber to the home situation for the full town of Lincolnville, which is our hope. And then we went into some pricing pieces at that time too. And as I mentioned then, and I do now too, that this is not a quote and this is not exact, and it's plus or minus 20%. So it's really kind of a rough estimate. And at that time, we were looking at to build out the additional 25.74 miles that would be needed to have complete fiber to the home and bring in 338 new households, we believe. Once again, we have to verify those numbers. We thought it would be around 655,000 plus or minus 20. I think it may be on the high end of that, frankly. So it's going to be probably could be up to the 750, but we're definitely in that range. And that's part of what would happen next, is to really do the research and engineering to decide exactly what that total cost is. At that time, back in November, we went through a couple of different scenarios just so the select board could get an idea of the size of this animal, how big it is, how much it would cost, and how long it would take to do it. We were at that time proposing that if we did it all on our own, that is to say, if we were fortunate enough to be able to apply for and get some Connect Main grants and put our own capital in, we were proposing at that time to look at it in a 4-year process, doing 4 years to build out those pieces. That's slow. We don't like to do it that way if possible. So we also talked about a 2-year option where the town then would also put in some capital, and that would help us be able to accelerate that process where we could do it in 2 years. So that was kind of what we were thinking then. The last thing that we provided at that meeting, and I think it's the most important because it's called Next Steps. And those are that's exactly where we are. And then some of the things have changed. So let me just go through those real quickly. We said the next steps at that time were that we'd need to identify all the unserved addresses. That's anybody under 25 megabits download and 3 megabits upload. Okay, so we really need to do a more granular, identification of everybody in every town and every building, and possible resident and customer who would fit that bill and map them out. Number two, we would have to complete a more detailed fiber to the home build out plan, starting with knowing exactly where they are, but also really drilling down and doing a pre-engineering. I mean, it's not the final engineering, but it gets pretty close at this next phase to really say, yep, here's exactly how much fiber we need. Here's the fiber count we're going to need on various roads. Here's what our central office equipment upgrades are going to require to cover that many more customers and plus building for the future. So we would have that 20% wiggle room I gave myself last November. It's going to come down to about 5% to this. Our plan that would really nail that down more concretely. So we would know what the fiber miles cost are, what the central office cost, and the per install cost per home. The next thing then we said was, so after that, then the next step is to really for us, LCI and Lincolnville, to be jointly applying for a Connect Main grant. And at that time we were saying that was going to be in March or May. So that's where the world has changed, in the Connect Main world, that is to say. They thought they were going to be doing 2 rounds of grants this spring, March and May. Everything got moved back because March got blown up. COVID-19 came in and that changed everyone's world. So everything kind of moved back. So they ended up moving their March round to May. That grant deadline was May 7th, so that's already passed. And just last month, they finally determined that there wasn't going to be a second round this spring. It was based on they were hoping to have a second round based on the receipts from the new surcharge that was being added, being charged out there on telephone charges, I believe, that allowed them to build more revenues for the Connect Main Fund. Obviously, their predictions were high. The receipts were lower than they thought, so they weren't able to have enough funds to fund a second round. So let me just stop there too and say that when we talk about a Connect Main round, right now it's about what they've been doing is about $750,000 at a time, sometimes a little bit lower than that, $600,000 to $750,000 statewide. So that's not much, so it doesn't go very far. Especially if you're looking for $100,000 or $200,000 for infrastructure grant for one build, that would eat up a lot of it. So what they're hoping to do, obviously, is make that change. So we think that's going to change. We hope so. The other big thing that happened was that in the legislature this year, they were able to pass the Connect Main $15 million broadband bond bill. So that is out there, and it's going to be passed out of both houses. It's signed by the governor, and it will be on the referendum ballot on July 14th. Go vote. So that could change a lot. Think about it. The point is, we go from 750 to 15 million. 15 million is still a Band-Aid, frankly, considering how rural Maine is and the amount of broadband that needs to be built all across the state to really have us to be a completely covered state. But it's a good start. It's a good start. And of course, we're very much supporting that. So that may change things. Originally, we were thinking, well, let's just supply. We'll look at this 2-year and 4-year process. The truth of the matter is, we don't know yet. We'll know it's coming up real quick. We'll know on the morning of July 15th if it passed. And we also know that if it does, it'll become available that fall, hopefully in October. There's still, Connect Main Authority still doesn't quite know for sure yet. They're waiting till it passes, of course, to make some final decisions. But there are some other federal grants that are going to be issued this fall. So they're kind of wanting to wait and see who got those before they start taking in another round of grant applications based on this new 15 million. But it is coming, and it's going to be bigger. So that's why I think one of the thinkings, one of my thoughts that have changed on this is that we may need to back up and say, let's take our time and really focus on that. That's what I'm working with communities on. That's coming, we hope. And let us get ready for that in terms of making sure we have all of our data in place, our pre-engineering done, our community support done, all our surveys and all of our public outreach, those kinds of things in place so that we have a complete grant package basically sitting there ready to go when they're ready to go. So that's kind of what we were thinking about going forward. That's why I wanted to back up to show you what's changed since kind of last November. The other thing then that has changed with also, and I'll just open it up and go back to the question you were specifically asking, is that the Island Institute has a broadband fund, a special pot of money that through the Tom Glenn Community Impact Fund that is specifically set aside for broadband grants, planning grants, so-called planning grants for coastal and island communities. And Lincolnville is certainly one of those. And we've had a number of conversations with the Island Institute, and they are very interested in working with us. They met with us and went through kind of all of our plans to build out our communities over the next 5 years. We have this kind of, we told them, yeah, we've been talking to Lincolnville. Here's how we think it could be a 2 or 4 year process. And talking to Bristol, we've been talking to this one, we're talking to that one. And they said, well, we want to help you accelerate that. We want that to go faster to help them meet their goals. So they have this planning grant they made available to us to talk to some number of our communities about and see if they were interested. And what that would allow us to do then is to be able to use that money to help pay for this initial phase that would really give us everything that we need so we can put those, so we positioned well to do the grants that we need to do to move forward once that we know what's going to happen after July 14th, basically. So I sent you that information too. It's the one that's the Island Institute application for broadband planning. Basically, it allows, and the grants are in the range from 5 to 15,000, and it requires a 1-to-1 match. Okay, so if you want 15,000, you have to give 15,000. We have to match it. Okay, or 5,000. We'd like to apply. We have, I think there are 6 communities we're talking to. You're one of them. To try to secure some of this planning money, and $15,000, which would mean we would be looking for, we're asking the communities then, the towns, to put in 7,500, and then we would put in our 7,500 in match, that is our in-kind match, which would be our engineering services for this particular project. This would allow us to bring on, we have a consultant that we're working with that we have taken under contract that's going to be working exclusively for us on these projects. His name is Brian Lippold. If you've done any work in the broadband community at all in Maine, you've heard of him, know of him. He's a former telecommunication and broadband executive in Maine, now has his own consulting company. He advises, he's been an advisor to the Connect Maine Authority. He's on the Broadband Coalition of Maine board. So he's wired into that whole community, which is great. And he does engineering plus all of that basic community preparation, working with broadband communities and getting the community support pieces needed. Basically, he writes everything, he can pull together all the material we all need to be able to put those grant applications together and to fully know all the costs that are going to be involved right up front. So that's one of the reasons we were looking at this Island Institute grant opportunity for an opportunity to bring that resource on that's going to help towns like Lincolnville and us to be even better prepared and really have a better understanding of what our community, what the community needs are, what the assessment is, but more importantly, be ready to go. I mean, the way that I used to be one of those guys, and I still am, one of those guys, because we're at Lincoln, at LCI, we like to put the money on the polls, not in booklets on sitting on a shelf, you know? So we always say, don't spend money on planning grants, just give it to us and we'll put another half mile, we'll put another mile of fiber up, you know, with that 15,000. That's true. However, what this allows us to do is have all the pre-work done for these grant applications so we can actually leverage our own capital and that hopefully that bigger pot of Connect Maine capital as well. So I put that's one thing I sent to Dave Kennedy saying, hey, this is something that he would like to present to the broadband committee. And then obviously the select board, we also know that not the best time to be coming around asking for communities for funds right now. But then again, this is something that we think it's important. I think communities do also, but it depends on the appetite of the community to be able to do this. Okay, I'm gonna stop there, take a breath. I got you all the way from November to today. And then what would you like me to do? Ask me questions, or I can go on to other parts?
Okay,
Well,
great.
we
Why don't we?
have a question. Sorry.
Yeah, why don't we first open it up to questions for Alan from the committee? Jordan, do you want to start?
Well, I actually just noticed that we have a question from one of the observers in
Oh.
the chat window.
Thank you for paying attention to that.
Just wanted to know. Yeah. That's okay. It's from Edna, and she wanted to know if Mr. Hinsey worked for Lincolnville Networks, and if so, do they have a plan, or is this what he's talking about? I don't know if
I
that
didn't hear
came
the-
through all right.
Yeah, I think you said, do I work for Lincolnville Networks? And the answer is yes. I'm the
Yeah.
director. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm the director of marketing and sales. And the last part then is, do we have a plan, or is that what we're planning to do? Was that the question?
Yes.
Okay.
That's how it was written.
Yeah, I think it's the latter. We have the rough idea of a plan. We know where everybody lives, so we know where our fiber is. We know where those roads are, where there's fiber that would still need to put out there. We have to do that. We kind of have a rough estimate of that, but we really need the detailed work to be done now. Yeah, I guess that's where we are. We have a plan, but we really need to do the next level of planning so we can go forward.
Okay, thank you, Alan.
Okay. And if Edna has other ones, please let me know.
All right, any questions from the committee for Alan? Yes, George.
Alan, thank you. I was looking at the Q&A answers that you had provided, and I wanted to, and I'm a little late to, coming a little bit late to this. There was a question about what having access really means.
Yeah.
And you then made a distinction between main roads and side tap roads.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of where you would make the fiber available. And you then talked about side tap roads that have 3 or more homes. What do you mean by a home? Is that a permanent residence? Is it a summer residence? Is it a part-time residence?
Yeah, it can be summer or seasonal. Yeah, can be summer or seasonal. I mean, yeah, what we look at, I'll give you an example of that. We've just completed we just applied for a Connect Main grant for the town of Bremen. Okay, it's in our Tidewater Telecom area. I submitted that grant on May 7th, got it done. And then worked with their broadband committee, and it was an amazing process. And I really recommend it for, we work closely with Krista Thorpe, who is the chair of their broadband committee. She did a great job. And if you ever want to compare notes with her, she would be a good person to talk to. Anyhow, as an example, with that one, it's kind of, actually, they're kind of like Lincolnville. We have quite a bit of fiber. Well, we have a lot more in Lincolnville than we do in Bremen. We've got about 1/3 of the town built out already in Bremen, but we need to build out 2/3 more. Now, it's a small town. They only have 600 residents, okay? So, but that means we're going to be building out for 400 more residents, okay? We've got 200 of them covered, 400 more, excuse me, that we need to cover with fiber. So when we did our engineering for this thing, we knew where all the houses were and all the roads were, the main roads and the side taps. We looked at each one of them, all the main roads, of course. First, we're going to have to get fiber on those poles on all the main roads. So we're in front of, when we say fiber access, that's what it means. We're in front of your house. We're in front of your property, I should say, okay? Those side roads, whether they be public or private side roads, we looked at each one of those and said, if you have more than you have 3 or more houses down that road, either seasonal or full-time, we consider that, yep, we'll build that, okay? Because that's clearly, there's enough density, believe it or not, there for us to do that and build that into our plan. If it's less than 3, then we'd say, we're going to make sure it's right in front of your road, but on that side tap road, though, and there are only 2 houses down there, only 1, would say, we're going to give you a cost for what it's going to take to get from the main road to your house, okay? If it's aerial, it's going to be pretty cheap. You know, if there's poles, if it's they've got conduit in place already, and there's space in the conduit that's available. Once again, not too costly, but that would be what we call aid to construction. It can be where the customer actually provides additional. So back to the Bremen example. So those 400, and they're a coastal community like you. They got interior places, but they have a lot of folks on the water, you know, that kind of thing. Of those 400 homes we're going to have to cover, only 55 of them fell into that category of, gee, you're not right. You're in that category of that side tap that didn't quite make the cut, at least initially. I say that though, also to say that none of this becomes real until you get engineer boots on the ground. And we look at each one of those, and sometimes it just, even though there's only one down there, my engineers come back and say, it doesn't make sense. Let's just build it. It's not that bad. So some of that we have to wait till we get the engineers out. It gets down to a cost issue for us. Can we afford to build that one or not? So we look at those individually. So the primary goal is to make sure we get fiber available up in front of it. Then you have to take it. But if we get it available in front of everybody, obviously, that's our number one goal. And then looking at those side ones we do those on an individual basis. And right now, I can't tell you how many there are or how many would fall into that category. We haven't done that level yet. That's part of what Brian would be doing if we bring him on.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Great. David.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. When you were talking about the consultant, you said they help with the community support, and your slide that you presented to the selectmen talked about needing 169 signatures for pre-application, 287 later. And obviously with everybody separating, could be tricky to get signatures. So walk us through how the consultant can help us quickly get the community support met.
Right. Well, what the consultant will do is work. And one of the things that's why it's really important. First of all, we want to apply as a joint application. And we find that's to be the most successful way to apply for these grants, where the private provider jointly applies with the town for the grant. We did that in Bodenham and Alna last year. Remember, I told you they had about $750,000. They gave out 4 infrastructure grants last year. We got 2 of them. So we've kind of figured out how it works, which is good. So we like to partner with the town. So that's one thing. And also then having a robust, and you certainly fit the bill, engaged broadband committee. That's important because that's also part of how we get that, how we have the consultant then works with the broadband committee largely to go out and get that community support. Back before, right now it's kind of hard. We can do a lot of things online. We can do a lot of things. It's hard to hold a town meeting. It's hard to hold informational, all that kind of stuff is going to be challenging for a while. Okay. And in our the Bremen one that we just filed, my goal was always to get 85% of those unserved homes that are in the Connect Main area that we're applying for. 85% of those to sign a support petition saying we support the town applying for this grant for our home. We just couldn't get it in there because the last phase is always to send the broadband committee out knocking on doors. That's always the last 2 weeks before I submit the grant. Go out, I need 27 more, go get them, and figure out how to do it. Well, we couldn't do that. So they did phone banks and they did everything they could and almost I think they got around 80%. So I'm pretty sure that we're going to get the full point for that anyhow. There's going to be some leeway. So that's what that means. So that consultant would be able to work with you on ways to provide you with information to do that, materials for you to use to get community engagement, and also to really help working with you to help you put together a plan for reaching out to promote this project.
So the consultant is basically a lobbyist?
No, more than that. No, more than he is that. He's he's not a registered lobbyist, I don't think. We like to call them educators, not lobbyists. But he's actually, he's an engineer, actually is what he is, first and foremost. He's looking at this from an engineer point of view and helping us get the data.
Was getting the community behind it rather than seeing what the community feels and needs and going from there. Maybe I misunderstood it, but it seems like you characterized it as this person comes in specially to get the community to get X number of signatures so that you guys can get the grant, right?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, I probably made it sound that way because my head's already in the place that we need to build out Lincolnville. Every town, our goal is to be 100% fiber to the home in every town that we're in. It's just really that simple. So we already think that, but the first step is and really is the assessment piece. There will be a survey, an actually survey piece. The consultant will help with that. There will be public meetings. There will be an opportunity for public comment. All those things to help fit that in to find out what people want and need. They may not want and need it. We work on the premise that that's something they would, but we don't know that until we find that out. That's step one, that assessment piece. The other one then is the inventory piece, really knowing exactly where, when he's done, we'll have every telephone pole we'll have a marker of every telephone pole and know exactly where we are with fiber, where we need to go, and where those side tap issues are going to be. So then we get into, if there's support, then it's a matter of working with you guys, saying, yeah, we want to go forward for a grant. Okay, let's help you get the signatures.
Well, I had a quick follow-up. I'm sorry, I don't, and I know these numbers are not exact, but going from the presentation from last fall, when they covered the amount of people that were covered in Lincolnville, there were certain splits, and I believe that they were around 550 something people already received fiber optics, and there was a number of around 370 of people who choose not to get the fiber optic, even though it's geographically available to them. And then on top of that, you guys were hoping to reach another approximately 330 households to add to that. And I know you said it's important to get the 85% of Lincolnville who's not covered, but I'm one of those people who's it's listed as chooses not to get service when I've explicitly been told that I can't get service. And I know that there's a current undertone of, but what I'm saying is that these numbers are being represented in two ways. So in one way, when it's advantageous, we're being marked down as 85%, which counts towards a quota. But then you're also using it as a number saying, look, we have these connections out here. It's just that these people aren't choosing to use them. So that's where I get confused about a lot of these numbers.
Okay.
And like you said, it's important to you guys that you make sure we're all served. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, the 80, I think maybe there's some confusion about the 85%. There are five scoring criteria that Connect Maine uses, at least now. And that's another thing. I think with this, if they get their new $15 million, I think their process may change. I don't know. But for right now, they use 5 criteria for scoring the applications. One of them is simply it's the percent of the they don't want to actually put any more than 20% into any project right now. So that you get so many points for that. In other words, provider contribution, etc. The second one is the participation piece. And what that means is they want, of those, the ones that are unserved right now and they don't have fiber available to them. That is to say, they're not just not choosing it, they're not sitting under it, but I don't want it. They actually don't have it yet. They're just still, all they have that's available to them is DSL, okay? So there's 338 of those, we think. That's the ones we'd be applying for the grant for. We need to build out so we can make it available to all of those, whether they want it or not. Now we have to see if they want it. That's what the 85% is for just those 338. So it's 85% of the people who don't have it now. Do they want it? Do they want a grant to help build out that would provide that level of broadband to their home? So I think that's what they look at for that one. Then the other big key factor for Connect Maine grants, and that's why the funding is important, and why getting the dollar amount pretty exact is important, is, as I mentioned, that 20%, but also Connect Maine, they're trying to use their money, as they should, thank God, most efficiently as possible. And that's based on the average cost per home passed. And they want to make sure that they give the maximum amount of points in a grant application if the average cost for the Connect Maine portion of the budget for a home that's passed is $500 or less. So we're always working the math to make sure that's the case. Now that way we know how much we can apply for, and that way, and how many homes there are. So that's how we're looking at. Typically we try to get it down around 400 or less to get the maximum points.
David, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. Alan, could you clarify? So the question to the unserved households, it's not if they're going to sign up for the broadband, it's do they support the project, right? Generally.
Yep, right. Yeah. What we've been doing is there's two ways we approach it. One is it's just for the grant, is the 85%. Do you support the town going forward and applying for this grant for Connect Maine grant, et cetera? If we can get 85%, we get the full, I think it's 25 points for that section. The other part that I had in the presentation was that 50% pre-signatures, pre-applications. That's just for us. That's just for us, so we can get a gauge of, okay, is this supported? You know, it wouldn't make sense for us to build it if in fact there didn't seem to be a business model there that everybody could support. It would make sense. Okay, that's why we say it's not required. It's not absolutely not required. That's something that's a goal for us, and that's why once it's out there, once the grant's in place, we say, okay, let's see who's interested. Okay, it makes sense. Frankly, it makes our CEO feel more comfortable then saying, okay, we have a lot of towns that we're doing this with. And there's only so much capital we can invest at any one time, just like any business in any one year. So the ones that look like they're the best, most engaged and are able to participate and show us that kind of willingness to I mean, signing a petition is one thing. Filling out an application and say, yep, I want that, and signing it is another. You know, so that helps us have our confidence as well. But it's not required to make the grant application.
Okay. Any other questions?
I got a question for you, Josh, and for John. If we're going to recommend $7,500 for this, moving forward on this potential consultant funding, can the selectmen approve that, or does it have to wait to, is there already funds approved at the town for this that are available, or do we have to wait to town meeting?
I would imagine we have to wait till town meeting. I mean, we don't have funds appropriated for that. Yeah, our undesignated fund or our reserve. Yeah, that would be a tricky one. And then just in terms of the support on the board, I have no idea since we haven't talked about it.
Right.
And I mean, even personally, I'm not sure how I feel about it yet.
Yeah, that's definitely something we'd have to put before the board first, and then if it got approved, then there'd have to be, yeah, I don't know if it's a town vote but you'd have to approve the funds.
It probably is a town vote, yeah.
Yeah, but I think it probably is a town vote because the budget's already pretty squared away for
Well,
20.
that's my question. Is there time to get it on this year's budget?
No, there's no way.
Yeah, we just.
Yeah,
maybe last week, but
yeah, I think yeah.
But that's not to say we can't call a special town meeting if the town, you know, if the select board agrees and the town thinks that we should move on it as soon as possible. I mean, we can call a town meeting within 7 days. So.
Well, we can also, I'll just make
Yes.
a suggestion to keep all the logistical conversation about town business, just wait till afterwards, because Alan's been kind enough to give us his time, and I'm sure he doesn't want to sit here listening to us.
I love
tonight.
it. I live for this. No, I'm kidding. I'll get out of your hair.
All right. Any other questions for Alan before we let him get on with his night?
And a couple other things, as you're considering this going forward, one thing I would just suggest too is, why don't I send you a copy of I'll send you a copy of our latest grant application, so you kind of get a sense of how that works. You know, it's more than you'll ever want to know, but you'll have that. And two, I'll talk to Brian. Brian Lippold just completed, not for us, but we work with these towns also, Booth Bay and Booth Bay Harbor. He completed that kind of planning process, assessment process first. Do you want it? Do you not want it? Where's everything at? And some recommendation pieces for Booth Bay and Booth Bay Harbor. It would give you a good idea of, oh, here's what the product we get out of this thing. That's it's very useful for all the parts that we're going to want to do together going forward, I think. So anyhow, I can send both of those to you. I'll send them to David and Josh, and you guys can get them out.
Great.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm available for anything else if you think of it. Just send me notes.
Thank you.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you very
Thanks so
much.
much, Alan.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's move on now. Well, what do we think about what LCI presented?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have an overwhelmingly bad taste in my mouth about it. And I think that what's been going on with the pandemic has only exacerbated the problems that this community has faced with this company. And I know I've experienced it personally, and dozens upon dozens of people have talked to me, so much so that I actually reached out to Josh and thought about starting my own survey because opinions were flooding in. And I question how much of a priority actually providing our community with a quality service is to LCI. And while we can't do without them for the moment, I really hesitate to be doing any kind of financial favors for them when I do not see them delivering even on the minimum requirements. And the other thing is that we can't operate in society today with 5 megabit connection. It's just not, we have grown past that technologically. So his offer is to either give us something that's inadequate or to comply on their financial behalf while they're still making a profit off of us to get something eventually in the future. And that's how I feel. I feel not good about it. So I'll be quiet. I've talked enough.
Yeah, so this is Dave. I guess I have almost the opposite view and I had from the beginning, which is the system that we have is with LCI and people may have issues with them. My issue is my service is really terrible. And I want to see improvements, and the path forward to me is obvious that if there's some expertise available like this Brian Lippold, if there's grants available through the Island Institute, you know, we want to get that intelligence behind us so we can make quick decisions and intelligent decisions. And I think, you know, we've been spinning our wheels a little bit over the past year, missing some deadlines, not having funding in this year's budget for this. You know, I guess we could just wait out the couple of years and hope that LCI eventually does this, but that doesn't feel very satisfactory to me. I want to see us be more on top of things and move forward. There's not another choice out there right now for broadband. We could wait forever to find it someplace else. So we have to deal with the provider that we have. And I think we can stand up for ourselves and protect ourselves. But if we don't work with them, this will go nowhere.
Well, part of looking at other options, even though it may be unrealistic, is looking at a municipal-based system. And that is also an option. It may not be one that people go for, but we are here to explore all the options. And that's where we're getting our wheels spinning. LCI is an easy option that will be there. And I don't know, you trust them to just give us quality service after a decade or more of not delivering it? What has changed? What good are we really getting out of getting them this money? Because that's what it is. We're doing legwork to get them money in the hopes, I hope, that you will give us better service. Right now, I live on a road that they say should get service, and they will not allow me to get service. They make more money off people getting a cheaper, already established technology than they do putting something new, and which is the basic requirement for human interaction these days.
I guess I would, you know, find myself in the same camp as David. It seems to me, and again, I'm somewhat of a newcomer here, that the pathway to doing this as a municipality is wide open and uncertain and likely to, you know, end up not going anywhere. This is an option we have in front of us. It, you know, selfishly, it seems to me that the benefit here is going to be wired to the home, and that once that wire to the home is installed, it creates the opportunity for better service. If we don't get the fiber to the home, where are we? Right?
But that's not our charge. Our charge is to explore options and present them to the town for them to decide. All that's happening here is discussion about personal opinions about how things should be done. We're not exploring the actual options. If you think municipal is unworkable, then you will be one of the voters who votes against that. But it is an option, as we see in Islesboro. And I feel like I'm being held hostage right now by a company. And it would be nice to just see, even if it's unrealistic, what the options are. I'm on the budget committee. We had a $1 million surplus that we're putting towards property tax relief. It cost Islesboro how much money? $3 million, $5 million. I just want to look at everything instead of saying this is the only way we have to go. There are options out there, and that's what our charge is to find options, get information on it, and then it goes to the public and we find out what the town thinks. This isn't for us to decide what we think is best for the town. I'm sorry.
I'm in agreement with that. I think we should it's important to look at different options and not just the LCI. They're established, but we need to do our best for the community to explore more options.
Well, how do you time that? I mean, I understand the desire to explore a multiplicity of options, but we have the LCI situation, which is somewhat time bound. There's going to be state money available, we assume,
For
over the
that,
next
though,
9
we
months.
have no guarantee of a positive outcome. That's what I'm saying. We need to do what's best for us in our town. LCI is a private company that makes profit for themselves. They will be okay. And he was very braggadocious about their ability to secure funds and support from communities. Our charge is for the town of Lincolnville and for the taxpayers who live here, and to present something to them to vote on.
Well, I think the next step for us, I'm hoping at the next meeting, we can get someone from Islesboro to come and speak to us, and we can hear from a representative that's actually, put in municipal fiber. Speaking personally, I just don't see the appetite in our community for municipal fiber at this point. But I certainly, what I'd like to see is a survey that we get the vast majority of Lincolnville residents to fill out, that asks all these questions, that ask, what do you think about supporting LCI for these applications? What do you think about municipal fiber? It costs X number of dollars for Islesboro, and to really gauge the temperature of our town.
Is that feasible within the time frame we're talking about?
Well, because
I think we need to just do it.
There's no deadline that's going to explode. We're especially now where every deadline on earth has been pushed to TBA, I think that there's something in the chat or question. Sorry,
Yeah, let me try to look at these. Okay, let me answer that one. Open Edna. Okay, we have a question from Edna. I'm not sure how we should be handling all these questions, but okay, let me just read them. So Edna, I agree with Jordan. I have lived here since 1971. LCI has done no improvements to our service. We contacted them numerous times and asked them what their plans are. And then she goes on, but I don't really think we need to read everything.
What I understand is like from the bulletin board and people in the community just are not really satisfied with the LCI choice. So I know there's a timeline and all these other things, but we can't shut it off either. And these people have these opinions that are, they're not happy with Tidewater.
There's something that seems mildly crazy to me about the idea of giving a private company money to help our community get the infrastructure in place that they're then going to make money from us on.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I can't think of any other situations.
Right.
I don't know. It just seems I know if I'm going to get another propane tank added to my, if I need more propane or something, PG Willie will say, well, this is what it costs to put it on your property. But, they're not saying, well, if your town gives us a bunch of money, and I'm not making a good analogy here, but my point is, I get the idea. You, as an individual, you pay for service to be brought to your home. I'm not trying to think of I don't know any others. Is this a normal thing? Like, what does anyone else know any other situation where you're a private company, the town is paying a private company to pitching in so that they can bring this to your town? And then, if the conversation were something like, look, for us to get this off the ground and into your homes, right? For us to build this infrastructure out and get it into your homes, we need the town to pitch in X amount of money if we're going to get it done in 2 years, right? You guys want it sooner than later. We can fast track this. It'll help us get, with your broadband committee, everybody's this is going to help us get it done faster. And once we've got those accounts going, and you guys are all paying us now weekly or monthly for the service, all that money that the town gave us to build that out will be rebated or paid back, or like it's almost like it seems to me like it's something that, since they're going to be making money off of it.
Well, that's what I meant. There's no incentive for them to do what they're supposed to do, because they are making as much money as they're charging for fiber optic membership as for the old broadband, which is an infrastructure which has been in place for decades. So they're making a huge amount of profit off that service. There is not incentive, and I don't trust them that when they say they're going to have the work done, because they are simultaneously using numbers saying that 300 or 400 people could have service but choose not to, but that's saying there's a whole swath of people who can't get it at the same time. And again, from my experience from people I know, they do not want to extend that fiber optic service to people. So why are we rewarding that, especially when it's a company that has a complete monopoly?
Well, let's just ask the question from the perspective of what the town wants, right?
Yeah.
If the town is looking to access state funds, the town has to go through a process and develop a certain kind of expertise to make those applications. I think what we're getting from LCI, and listen, I don't have any vested interest in their success economically, is an offer to provide expertise to the town in applying for grant money that the town probably is not otherwise going to get, right? Otherwise, we would have to go out and hire our own consultant, probably for more than $7,500. Excuse me?
The town doesn't get that money. The money goes straight to LCI. The town gets no financial benefit from this. It's not like it's put into our coffers.
Doesn't the town get the benefit of the build out?
How? That's something we're trusting a company which already doesn't deliver its basic service.
So I guess, Jordan, Jordan, you're working from the assumption, and I guess it's kind of a reductive argument, that you can't trust these people at all, and they're not going to provide what they're talking about. Is that right?
Over decades, the actions that they have shown over decades, that's all you can go by. This isn't about opinion, it's about fact. Some person just came in and said the exact same thing. This is what I've been hearing from everyone. Their service is not good. And so it's not a matter of whether I like it or not. You can only judge things from experience and action. And their actions have been extremely consistent. And I cannot judge them in another way.
So Jordan, just to understand, and it'd be helpful, that there's no way that you would ever support working with these people.
That's not true. That's not true at all. There's no way that I want to give a carte blanche agreement to a company that we're just going to have a lobbyist come in here and convince everyone that they need to get signatures so that they can get their money. And that is exactly what he said. He said it in a smoother way, but that's what he said.
Well, what are the conditions that you would need to go forward with them?
We would have to have a guarantee of performance of product, a timeline when it would be finished. There would have to be a concurrent rebate on our bills to go with what kind of financial backing they got. These are basic things. We're just hoping. We're hoping. You know, if we want to get people money, I have a business. I would love if the town would lobby on my part to get some money. And I know a lot of other people who would too.
So let's try to focus. There's a lot of good ideas floating around here. I mean, what I'm hearing is the biggest question is, are we supportive, or do we think our community is supportive of a municipal option or the LCI option, or is there some other option? So that we have to get that framed up and decide what to do with it. If the decision, or do we just do nothing and wait for LCI to do something over whatever time period they choose to do? Or do we work with LCI but put the parameters on it? Like John, I thought he had a great idea of saying, if we put in $75,000, once you start signing up people for broadband and start making money, you reimburse us. And I thought you just had a great idea, Jordan, about having a really clear schedule with them. I mean, back to self-interest, from my perspective, even though I've been horribly frustrated with them, I want to get broadband before 4 or 5 years from now. And I'd love to hear about the municipal options, but I doubt we can afford that. So I think we have to deal with these folks. And if we can get some good expertise, I think we can build up the protections that we've all been talking about.
And I
Well,
think,
go
sorry,
ahead.
John, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
You know, to me, I don't think that our committee should be making the decision. I think that really it should be with the survey, a survey that we control, that we ask our residents, what do you think? I think, you know, all of us have heard the frustration, and probably most of us have experienced firsthand what it's like to have DSL from Lincolnville Telephone when it doesn't work well. And it's a really strange haves versus have-nots, because it's the same company providing it, but once you have fiber like I do, it's great. And so it's almost like you forget about how bad the DSL you know is. So anyways, yeah, I feel like we all have opinions on the company and if we can trust them or not, but I feel like the first thing is getting a survey out to.
I like that idea. Mhm.
And I feel like we can do that fairly rapidly online. I don't know how we reach people that are not on computers, but.
Well,
do you
just
guys-
to pursue that.
Diane O'Brien.
Your telephone.
Yeah, but to pursue that question in terms of the survey, what are the questions we're going to ask? I mean, on the one hand, do we want a municipal system? And do we have information we can provide to the people we're asking about what the cost of that municipal system would be? Or do we want to pursue an existing offer from a company that people don't like very much? Is there a third option? If it's either or, I'd be curious, you know, if I got the question, well, on the municipal side, well, you know, it cost Islesboro $3 million, right? And on the LCI side, well, they're looking for $7,500 to go forward on a co-investment. I mean, what I'm just trying to, if we're trying to poll our community about which way to go, what kind of information do we have in terms of the alternatives? I mean, I'd love to know if there are other alternatives besides the municipal system. Is there another system that's going to overbuild? Do we know that? I don't think.
I forget where we left it, but I believe we were gonna try to invite a representative from the other providers in the area. I don't think there's anyone else besides LCI that is providing broadband. I think we came to that conclusion, but I think at the very least we should invite them, have them come speak to us so we can confirm at least that there are no other options and no other companies are pursuing this for Lincolnville.
Someone mentioned that-
My concern is having an either or survey in which, you know, at least we have some information from LCI. I mean, there's an awful lot of bitterness about them, and fine. I mean, I haven't been here long enough, although my DSL service is terrible. If the question came to me, you know, does the town commit to a municipal system? There's an awful lot of information you'd want to have about what the potential cost of that would be. At least LCI has some kind of a context that ties into a set of grants. I think, you know, the nature of a survey can be very much determined by how you ask the questions. And I'm just not sure how we quite ask the questions if the other alternative is a municipal system we have no idea about the cost of, nor about the timeline to implement.
Right.
I guess we have in Islesboro and several other examples. You know, how long did that take? You know, I guess in the earlier discussions, there were several other towns around here that tried to do that and it just died, right? And nothing happened. So I'm just wondering about if we want to go out and ask people, we should probably try to figure out more about how we're going to ask that in a way that we can get an informed answer. I mean, I'm not sure what that answer is. Believe me, I don't want to, I have no vested interest in LCI. I'm just kind of thinking, what's the fastest way to get to this new technology? Because I think the point that you make, Josh, about the difference between fiber and DSL, I'd say that 95% is inherent in the technology. I mean, there's a huge difference between fiber, which can, carry an unlimited amount of information, and DSL, which is inherently limited and glitchy, right? So I think there's an element here too that, do you deal with the devil to get the better technology? Or do you forego an opportunity? I mean, that's my sense. I mean, if we want to have the survey, let's focus on the survey. But what are the questions we ask? Is it an either or? Are there 3 options? And if we get, 30% in terms of the comeback, where do we go from there?
Mhm. And another question for the survey is do nothing. We don't want to help them. And a person should have that option to say that. And yeah, when fiber comes down my road, then I'll buy it, but I don't want to help that company. I mean, that should.
So, or is it a survey just yes or no on LCI? I think that one's going to come out, right?
Right.
Well,
Right.
if we meet with the Islesboro people and get some information, I think we can educate ourselves about the municipal option. And then if we could present those 3 options, work with LCI, don't work with LCI and do nothing, or do a municipal option. In the end, I think that's going to be the 3 choices.
Hmm.
Okay.
Well, I
there's
think it might also be interesting to know for the people who had DSL and now have fiber optic, how do they, has their feeling changed toward LCI?
Yeah, a great question to ask.
Yeah.
I'd love to know the answer for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah, Jordan.
wanted to give a sample question for the survey as far as the municipality is concerned. I mean, I would like to see the question frame in respect to if you could receive guaranteed fiber optic service for the same fee or $10 more, and it would be paid for by a public bond, which those fees would pay off. Would you, something that says that instead of saying, would you approve a municipality system for $4 million? Because that's a bit deceiving. I mean, if you could get a certain percentage of the town to commit to a subscription, I think that's the realistic way of looking at it. So you'd say, like, would you trade your LCI, whatever you have, DSL or fiber optic, for the same price if you knew the town of Lincolnville would own it? I think a question like that would be pretty appropriate.
Of course, you could also phrase the question, do you want to, float a $3 million bond issue, right? To get fiber optic to 350 people.
But that's not, that wouldn't see, that's a lack of understanding what's going on. There's not only 350 people in Lincolnville subscribed to fiber optic. What they're talking about is over 1,000 people. So when you're talking about that multiplied by a $70 a month subscription, how long is it going to take to pay off $3 million? That's a more appropriate comparison than just putting a large number out there with any attachment to reality. That's the distinct question.
Have you run the math on it, Jordan?
No, that's our job. We need to find that information out.
Yeah, I mean, the way we word it obviously needs to be as neutral as possible, and that'll be a challenge to do that.
And I think so. Maybe the next step is to have the conversation with Islesboro. I mean, and find out how long their
Sounds
bond
like
is going to
it.
run,
Yeah,
and
certainly
exactly
the
how
next-
it's working.
Yeah, let's try to get. I'll ask David Kinney to invite them, and hopefully they're at our next meeting, so we can just get that information as soon as possible.
Sounds good.
So are you guys seeing the chat things coming in?
I am.
Comment?
Yeah. I
There's
am.
some interesting ones, I mean, the point that there's a concern that different providers don't like to step on each other's feet. So they'll, if you ask Spectrum if they would work here, they'd say no, but there isn't any territorial, there's no law that says they can't. I mean, I just wonder if you could have, conversations with other providers and kind of push that a little bit, or, like, hey, well, why can't you work in Lincolnville? We're really unhappy with the service we have. We hear you guys do a better job. Why couldn't you come in here, give us a bid, or, why? What's the reason?
Yeah.
Well, I think, cable companies, don't overbuild unless there is the possibility of making substantial income from, underutilization, right? I think that, getting an overbuild in a town this size is probably highly unlikely. We can certainly ask, but my sense of the business is that, while their overbills were done in the early stages of franchising, they're very rare at this point, right? What you've had is a decrease in the number of providers rather than an increase in the number of providers over time. I mean, that's the advantage of the incumbent. And then the question becomes, I really think if the idea is, if the other alternative is a municipal bond offering and a municipal build-in, we should know how long it would take and how much, how long it takes to pay off the bonds. And let's make the survey neutral and revealing. The only other element that I would come back to is the fact that there's a time-bound element here in terms of LCI as an option. And if what we're hearing among this group is representative of the community, we're not going to take it, right? So in a way, it becomes almost a non-question unless we can get that survey out very quickly, right? Because there's a little bit of a sense that the train's going to leave the station in terms of this funding.
Well, at the very least, nothing's going to happen until July 15th, right? So we have until then. That's, time seems to fly, but that's a good 2 months.
Yeah.
And if we just really keep moving, then I have confidence we could have a survey done and get responses.
Well,
Okay.
so the timeline is what? Is having the conversation and getting the necessary information for the survey from Milesboro and perhaps from, Rockport that had it blow up, is to speak from someone in Rockport who tried to go that way and didn't, and then get the survey out as quickly as possible, trying to sort out a neutral presentation of the options. Is that our timeline?
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, even though we may need to gather information from Rockport, Islesboro, Spectrum, perhaps other providers, to properly word a survey so it gets decent results. There is an element of time involved, so maybe we might want to put a Google Doc up there that we can all contribute to, either topics that we think need to be done. Because unfortunately, if we try to do it now and at meetings, we'll be wordsmithing in a group, in a committee.
Yeah, right.
Which doesn't work well, usually.
No, you can't draft in committee. That's the case. But I think we don't have the information unless it's already out there in terms of the municipal alternative.
No. And so I was going to say, why don't we do this, two things at the same time, two tracks at the same time. Start throwing up ideas in some type of document or public document that we can all share while we're gathering information from Islesboro and Rockport and Spectrum in these meetings that we're having now. And maybe those, if we do it 2 tracks, maybe things will gel in time.
Okay.
So we won't feel so pressed for time. We're up against
Josh, wasn't there there was one guy who was the main guy out in Islesboro who like when we went out and did that little tour out there, and then I can't remember his name, but there was like maybe we could find out from David or lately, but I just remember that there was this one point person and he was the consultant and basically put the whole thing together. I'm wondering if we could get him in here to tell us what that whole thing entails.
Right. Yeah. We'll ask David. I know that Vern was actually instrumental in it too.
Oh, okay.
Our assessor. So
I think David Kinney has some ideas. I mean, he's in conversations with me, he's thrown out numbers in his mind about what it would take to do things here. So he might have more information than we realize.
yeah, great. Okay. Yeah. I love the idea of a Google Doc. I'll talk to David about setting that up. I don't see the harm in us, just throwing ideas around in between meetings.
Yeah.
Well, I
But
was just,
what I really like about Mike's idea is that maybe we can't do it yet, but if we could have groups working in between meetings to try to, move the ball ahead, I think that'd be great. So working on the survey sooner than later was whoever's a good writer would be awesome. I think we're not there yet, but after the Islesboro meeting, if we could move fast on that.
Yeah. Okay.
That sounds good.
I agree.
Great. Okay. Well, unless there's no other questions or comments, let's move on to action items. So for me, I'm going to talk to David Kinney about scheduling in Islesboro, someone from Rockport. I think that would be valuable.
Yep.
And
What about Spectrum?
yeah, and I was just wondering if that should all be in one meeting. I don't see the harm in that. Maybe we could give them certain times to virtually show up, so we're not wasting their time as they're waiting.
Yeah.
Do we have access to the bond that was issued by Islesboro?
Access to,
I mean,
How
there
it
was,
was written?
I assume that there was a bond that was, the money was raised pursuant to a bond.
I
And
would
that
assume
bond
so, yeah.
had terms. I assume it's a public document. That would be an interesting thing to see exactly how long the payoff is.
Right, certainly. Yeah, that'll be information that we will certainly have before that meeting, or it'll be presented at that meeting. All right. Well, let me see if I can get David to schedule in. Rockport, Islesboro, and we'll reach out to Spectrum and Red Zone. I mean, why not? And if they're not interested in coming, then they're probably not going to build out in Lincolnville.
I got
Thank you.
a separate question. The idea of some expertise and the idea of getting some money from Island Institute to get us that expertise is very attractive to me. And I'm separating that from LCI. So another topic that I think we should cover soon is should we approach Island Institute directly to see if they will give us funding to hire whoever we want? Because I think when we go out to figure out whether Spectrum will work with us or, we're not really that competent to figure those things out in between meetings. It'd be really nice to have somebody who has that expertise.
Okay.
good point.
And
I
if
think
somebody else wants to
it's
pay
a
for
great
it.
idea. We should do it, someone call them tomorrow.
So I'd be glad to call them and find out, can we apply for this grant acting on our own?
Okay. Yeah. Let's at least have that information.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
Mike.
the greater question then is, does it make sense at this point to hire a consultant? I mean, if we have some co-funding from the Allen Institute, that would be lovely.
We're just an exploratory committee, really. You know what I mean?
You mean asking the select board to hire one?
Well, I mean, if someone's going to do an analysis of issuing a municipal bond, presumably we would need some expertise in terms of how that's put together and what it's going to cost and what it means for the municipality. The questions you sort of immediately come to mind are, we have existing infrastructure. Is LCI obligated to make that available? I think that they're required to allow you to hang stuff from the existing lines. I would love to know what that is all about. And do we have the expertise on the committee? I don't think we do. Again, it's to do this. At some point, we have to bring in some expertise. Maybe it's farther down the line. The attractive thing about LCI is that this is what they do. However badly they do it. Going down the road to doing a municipal offering, I'm absolutely certain that Islesboro hired someone to do that for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have homegrown expertise to put together the bond offering.
Right.
Do we? I don't know if we do as a town.
Well, I mean, the first thing I think is just to gauge the temperature.
Yeah,
Yes, Mike.
okay.
Well, I was along the lines of action items. I was just going to volunteer, since we're all volunteering to do stuff, to try to put together some information and get it around to the group on municipal broadband. There's a couple clearinghouse sites out there which try to help communities make it happen, as well as Islesboro's website is very forthcoming on the history of what they've done and how they've done it, what consultants they worked with, etc.
Okay, great.
And I'll just try to get a couple of those things and get them out to the group. And
That would
maybe
be
that
great.
will help us form
Great.
some questions.
Good idea.
Sounds
Okay.
good. Thank you.
Great. Any other action items that we need to assign or we want to volunteer for? There's Freddie with the cat. Okay, great. Well, let's schedule our next meeting. Bring up
Sooner
my
rather than
calendar.
later.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is 2 weeks from now too soon?
No.
No,
Not for me.
No,
Okay.
that's good.
Okay, great. I think that would sooner the better. So
You know,
Okay,
and if we
so-
could have Mike's information in the interval, then I think, that would be a very,
Oh,
very
yeah,
productive.
yeah. No,
Right.
that's the plan. I've already gathered up a bunch
Yeah.
of stuff, and I'll try to put it in some reasonable format and get it to you guys.
okay,
Thank you.
great. So that's Thursday, May 28th, 7 p.m.
Okay.
Same
That's good.
virtual place.
All right.
Great. Any non-agenda items?
Negative.
Okay.
No.
Great. Do we have a final motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right. I'm just make it official. Do the vote really quickly. Mike Ray, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay. George Cook,
Accord, yep.
Gina Sawyer,
Yes.
David Perkins,
time for dinner, yes.
Becky Johnson.
Same as Dave, yes.
Me too. Jordan Barnett Parker,
Yes.
John Fishman,
Yes.
Jonathan Janitis,
Yes.
and I vote yes too. All right.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Everyone.
Cheers,
Thank
thanks,
you,
everyone.
Josh.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night, everyone.
Night. How's go? Leave. Oh, leave.